always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages, including facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. A lot to get to here today, including some more downtown redevelopment, reinvestment kind of things going on in the region. Still encouraged by. Hope the trend continues. We'll get into what might be coming for a long-suffering and very recognizable part of the downtown area, but also some more national talk, or I guess more specific to Texas talk, I guess, but coming from some national officials talking about, well, roads, transportation, and redevelopment of highways, but with an eye towards not affecting local communities. What's being said out of the administration? Don't talk about Buttigieg that much, so why not here today? Talking about high-speed rails, but also highway expansions, but also considering neighborhood impacts. We'll break all of that down and what that might mean for some of the local projects we've got on deck here as well, and a whole lot more, including Texas in the midst of all of this energy considerations, and talk about transportation, telling companies divesting from oil, gas, and fossil fuels in general to say you're not doing business with us. So just a few other things on the top of the list here today. So if you're wanting to tune in, chime in, welcome to do so over the social media pages, some of the better ways to do so throughout the program. Of course, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, and Twitch, Andrew J. Polk, where you can go find that as long as we're up there. Might be, might not be. Facebook decides how it wants to work on a day-to-day, which is why we're on all those places, amongst other things. But one of the better ways to do so throughout the show here, as we'll have, the whole calls a little bit later in the program here. Wanted to start off today with actually a pretty, unfortunately, disturbing circumstance, of course. A lot of information coming out about that crash that involved some regional areas here, that specifically that was the team from the golf team from the University of the Southwest, golf teams, men and women, that the horrific crash there in Texas today as they were transportating to and from a actual event, I believe. And if you want to find the story over on our website, ktsmradio.com, and finding that the NTSB says a 13-year-old was actually behind the wheel in the crash that ended up leaving 9 dead as that pickup truck slammed into the van carrying the golf team, again, from the University of the Southwest in New Mexico. And the 13-year-old behind the wheel also died after the 3/4-ton pickup when a spare tire on the front had a blowout, and it was going more than 70 miles per hour when that happened. So that's been, of course, brewing, that story, since yesterday, but the developments coming out not too long before the program here, certainly tragic and horrific, and just lends me to believe to be careful as you're going out there. I do say safe out there as we end each program, particularly look twice when out on the roads for motorcycles, but other things, and even other drivers, because one of the tenets, of course, of defensive driving is making sure that you're aware of the circumstances around you. Not sure anyone could have really done anything about this one, but just a horrific circumstance here. So talking about roadways, of course, and everything that comes with them. Of course, a lot of discussion about what might be happening in downtown El Paso, that whole expansion project that City Council sent a letter for request to review anyway, because as it was pointed out, not exactly a whole lot that can be done on the part of, local officials to final decisions in that. Really, TxDOT is in the driver's seat, the Texas Department of Transportation in the driver's seat when it comes to making those decisions and what will and won't be focused on. Of course, there's been a lot of community input requested as part of it, but as always, whenever we're talking about multi-$100 million, edging towards the $1 billion mark, just for this set of projects. The number that was quoted to me some years ago at this point, actually, was they're looking at roughly $800 million just for strict roadbed maintenance, because you think about I-10, there hasn't been major work done on the very base level. I mean, there's been patchwork, some expansion of lanes, et cetera, but we're talking about getting down into the roadbed itself and, surface level concerns, those kind of things, has not been done essentially since the dang thing was built literal generations ago at this point. So there's some work to be done there, and that work alone, roadbed, and by roadbed, that does not include the bridges or overpasses, to my understanding. Maybe the overpasses, but definitely not the bridges. And there's actually dozens of bridges that are included in I-10. If you want to go not too far from our offices over here, when you're looking at I-10 near, well, Top Golf now is actually the better landmark to use here. There are a couple of arroyos that are spanned by bridges that you don't even necessarily notice as you're driving along, but that kind of a thing is not included in this, roughly as was quoted to me, and I'm sure it's gone up since then, like $880 million, the right way to say that. So significant costs, even without including the bridges. And then if you include the bridges, because there's a whole lot more technical nature that goes along with it, you immediately hit billions, maybe even, good like 1.2, 1.3 and above. So that was an estimate that I've been operating on for years now. And there will probably be some local matches asked for, particularly if there's more local input being considered, or some of these requests from City Council. All of that is kind of up in the air on what exactly will be. But what I don't think is at all in question is the fact that we are looking at between essentially county line to county line, or better part of it anyway, definitely the north part of the county line with New Mexico. Going to start there. That's the first part of the project that's already being actually, if I'm not mistaken, in talks, or looking at what contractors are going to want more specifically. That already going on, to my understanding. So that one getting pretty close here, that just to even widen it to match up what comes out of New Mexico. Yeah, that kind of stuff is happening. But then more specifically, the part that, again, that whole downtown sector, the possibility of blowing away everything in between Yandle and I-10, which includes, among other things, some housing, some businesses, the Holocaust Museum, those kind of things, that will certainly have an issue as we get closer to, reality and what the final plan will be if it's not meeting community needs. I mean, there's some discussion about, why worry about expanding it here, even as there's more look at it here. So already coming up on the need for that break here. The one other thing I want to talk about downtown as well in the midst of this is from a lot of being reported by out here, but including over those over there at El Paso Inc., that plans revealed for the historic Crest building in downtown El Paso to be revamped. Of course, there's many projects in downtown, not all of them, but certainly a lot of the high-profile one involving Paul Foster's Mills Plaza property, looking at doing 45,000 square feet of retail and commercial space, first and second floors, again, as reported by El Paso Inc. there, including a multi-million-dollar investment coming into it. And Commissioner's Court looking at approving incentives for it, actually improved as of last week. $18.4 million will be the minimum investment required for that in that Chapter 381 economic agreement. So I think that'll be nice there. I mean, the Crest building is one of the more iconic ones. If you're in San Jacinto Plaza and looking south, you can kind of see it on the right-hand corner of the intersection there that has that kind of distinctive Crest building on it. And it was kind of the way I was always explained to me, because it was shuttered long before I was able to go and visit kind of things like that as a young person, that it was kind of the original shopping malls, the way you could kind of think of it, not necessarily in terms of how it's actually laid out, but that there is a public walkway, a lot of stores, and it kind of an older style, but maybe kind of being seen as retro, or just availability in downtown, because we've got a lot of businesses in downtown. We've even had some residential finally returning to downtown in recent years. So the ability to do more, I mean, outside of the whole Golden Horseshoe area, makes a lot of sense here. So excited to see what the plans might be out of that. I just am a fan of downtown redevelopment in general. I think that we kind of lucked out in this community that the majority, anyway, of our historic building stock that adds so much character and history to our area managed to survive the decades of misuse or disuse or neglect, frankly, from certain individuals that have had certain phrases applied to them by certain members of our audience that you can be revisited here. I don't want to get sued, so I won't say it, but you're welcome to over in the comments. Anyway, that fact that these buildings are going to be starting to be used and continue on, even if we've seen things like the Caples building not quite meet its threshold for redevelopment and being sold, I think there'll probably be a good chance that it will continue on and being doing that. Ever since really the Gateway Hotel downtown had started having work done on it, even if that project has spun on for a long time now that I think about it, I'm encouraged and I hope that it can continue here. So again, due for that break right now. Coming out of the break, we'll get to more of the stories here, including what the whole idea of transportation redevelopment, what's being talked about for Texas, but coming from the national level. Here's some comments already coming in, John Browson and among others here. So stay tuned. We'll get more into that after this break. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound at Geronimo, watch for a wreck that's got the two right lanes closed. Minor backup right now to Airway. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Yarborough, that earlier stalled vehicle is off to the right. All lanes are back open. A little bit of a backup. I-10 westbound at Wrestler, you got slow and go traffic all the way up to Thorn. I-10 westbound at Mesa, you got a stalled vehicle and a big rig stalled at I-10 westbound at Thorn Avenue. Harry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by DuckDuckGo. Protect your privacy for free with DuckDuckGo.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Hey, El Paso, this is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. We've extended Ram truck months, and deals are even bigger and better. With 0% interest, more for your trade, huge savings, and a huge selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles, with more arriving daily.
Buy now and get huge savings during Ram Truck Month at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer, full-size SUV with third-row seating. 2022 Ram trucks with 0 APR for 72 months. 0 down, 0 payments for 90 days. Upside down in your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying your truck is fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso, El Paso Strong. Excludes factory rebate at dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APRs, $13.89 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
iHeartRadio Earth knows small changes can make a big difference. Want to reduce your food waste? Embrace your freezer. From bread to meat and even cheese, most foods can be frozen and cooked later. Plus, a full freezer uses less electricity. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Has this ever happened to you? My friend was telling me about his new pair of headphones, so I looked them up online. Now, everywhere I go is a creepy ad for those headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I got DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. With one download, you can search and browse privately, avoiding trackers, all for free. It's that simple. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. With people tuning in, John Browson and chiming over there right now about the downtown, the couple of downtown issues we're discussing here so far today. Again, I'm fully in favor of redevelopment, but John not convinced exactly as much, saying tourism will never come to El Paso because of old buildings. Very few people really care. I will challenge you on that. There have actually been tours that have come through to look specifically at Trost buildings in the past. Now, this is not exactly a widespread constant thing. It was kind of getting moving, and then it's kind of seemed like to get a little bit of a kibosh put on it by, of course, the pandemic, as many things did. But there have been people interested in specific aspects of downtown. But I'll agree with you on this point that just having old stuff doesn't make it interesting. The places that just have old stuff and nothing going on with them, we call those ruins, among other things. And people visit those for various reasons, but you don't exactly have life going on there. So not in favor of this kind of going too far in that direction, essentially, when it comes down to that. Oh, no, we only can have old buildings. Nothing new can happen, and they have to stay kind of perpetual that way. Frankly, when you get into that, I had the opportunity a few years back before the pandemic, thankfully, to visit, as was kind of not exactly a bucket list, but I was very happy to before it sinks into the sea, Venice. Beautiful city, great place. A lot of people flock to it for their old buildings, but for the people who actually live there, it's kind of severely frustrating for them because they get, it seems like tourists take over their lives in that case, and the frustration that comes with, someone wanting to essentially walk into your house because of its historic value. So, there are people who do like historic visits and trips there, but they can't do anything new. All of the real new activity, the real aspects of life, like cars and things, happen outside of the city center. So, I get the point there that you can't have it here in John Brazelton bringing up a Tombstone. Okay, better local example, kind of on the order then of Venice. There's got a lot of old stuff, a lot of things where people don't really actually live, and it's stifling, really, for like active activity in life. So, but the other example I'll give you, also pretty close to home, will then actually be like Las Cruces. Because Las Cruces had some, Trost buildings, some older historic buildings in their downtown corridor that they all blew away, and it just kind of feels... This is not a dig on Las Cruces. Love the town here, but it just kind of feels sanitized in a lot of way. There's no sense of place there. So I think El Paso can hit a sweet spot of both having the history that informs what a place is and what it does and what its means and what its future might be, but also, particularly on the future, keeping things going and keeping people living, be able to make their livelihoods, because you feel it in a place when it seems like it's I've lived in a couple of places where like the core business, College Town specifically, where I went to, had its major factory shut down in the like half decade to decade before during my time there in the place. And yeah, you could feel it because it had a beautiful older downtown that was largely vacant, no stuff there. And in this case, it wasn't and people weren't being allowed to redevelopment. It was just divestment from the whole area. It really does have its issues when it comes to that. But the idea of there still being it, because people are still attracted to those kind of buildings. There is a core of people who seek out that specifically. But if you have the idea of, a brand new, modern, glass encased building that looks like every other one versus a place that has a little bit of culture and character to it, I'm going to tend towards the latter here. Now, it won't necessarily bring me out, but whenever I travel a place, whenever I'm already going somewhere and looking at those kind of specifics, that makes the difference for me. What has, I am a history buff, as is not exactly a secret, but that's the kind of stuff I look for. And I think more people are, even if it's, a workaday kind of way, not exactly the best thing. RJ over there also saying that El Paso really needs to put together a tourist trap with Hardin, Pancho Villa, and Old West history that is so rich. There's been a couple of attempts in the region to put together like an Old West town kind of thing. There was some, reenactments that happened for a while in downtown, but to my understanding from the people involved with that I've talked to, that is pretty much not going to be allowed to happen for the foreseeable future here. So yeah, I think it would make sense to do like an old El Paso downtown somewhere, like put it out in Montana. Actually, I think that's where the previous one that has kind of been abandoned last I saw as I drove out there. Was that last summer? Geez, feels like a long time ago. When I drove out there when we were having the rains and we had the whole sea, kind of, not really the beach, where we actually had some water with it out in the salt flats. I think I drove by it out there. So it's a ways out there and not really the way it should be. We've got historic ghost towns, of course, in the region here. Andrew Zignorant bringing up, how about the Mexican-American Cultural Center, a.k.a. El Paso Jail? If you want to call it that, I guess that's your prerogative. Don't quite get what the point you're making there on that last bit is, but sure, things like that could be included and probably should. But of course, we got the El Paso History Museum that can also focus on that kind of a thing. John Brazelton saying, further, bring back the alligators. The alligators actually got the raw end of the stick that involved in that. They were removed not because they were causing damage to anything, but for their safety, because unfortunately, the people at that time in El Paso couldn't really handle, like, people, there were more than a couple of stories of people like putting out cigarette butts on the alligators. So that was more of an us problem than the alligators problem. I very much like the statue. And back in the day when we were first, of course, having the baseball team downtown, I was very much in favor of the name Desert Gators because of the history of it. I mean, the Chihuahuas make sense, and no hate for the team in its current incarnation, but I would have thought that would have been a little bit better, actually, just because of the local history aspect. But I'm weird that way. I fully understand and admit this. But okay, so beyond the idea of keeping historic buildings around, them actually being useful and currently used, I think is another important step here. And one of the things I'm hearing, actually, is that the economics have changed enough with supply and all of that, that actually, instead of trying to demolish and build up from the ground, redeveloping, particularly with the tax incentives that can come along with it and public-private partnerships like the county is talking about, can make it even more feasible to deal with these kind of buildings. Because I know that actually, specifically with the Gateway Hotel that had a lot of issues in interim years, one of the things that happens because modern architecture clashing with historic architecture, or more older architecture, I guess the way to put it, is that the whole use of natural resources versus just forced air. Because let's be honest, with modern construction, all that is being done is the idea of heavy electricity use and forced air, which is, but versus older buildings, that the idea of, using natural currents and, airflow and transoms and those kind of things, they just kind of tend to board them up. So my understanding that a place like the Gateway Hotel is that those transoms and things that make it a little bit more passively and potentially energy efficient with some upgrades, better insulation things, are still around, weren't necessarily ripped out. So I'll be very curious and be watching what's going to be happening with that Crest building downtown. Again, that has been a very interesting facet of the downtown landscape that has managed to not be demolished. It's actually not just on that corner. It goes all the way over to Mesa Street, I do believe. And so it could be a whole interesting downtown shopping corridor. And if done right, the kind of thing that people do seek out, not necessarily just for the building itself, though I will contend that there are people like that. The phrase that actually encapsulates all of this is heritage tourism. People who come out looking for places that have a little bit of culture, a little bit of history to them. And I think El Paso has that in spades. We're delving a little bit into subjects talked more about on some of our other programs, including the El Paso History Radio Show, Saturdays 10 to noon here. But again, I am fully on board with the idea that doing it and doing it right, strong and difficult balance that you have to try to get to. But I do think that, well, I've been happy in my own way with the way it has been done by some of the major concerns, including Foster and Hunt companies, to a large part. I mean, there's plenty of things that you can nitpick on it, but like the Plaza Hotel, I was very happy with the way that was done, with a respect to, well, I think it struck a pretty good balance, just in my personal opinion, between both the idea of preserving and keeping the history of a place here and not just starting all over, blowing away what is already there, but then very much focused on, and how can we use it now? I think there is a balance to be struck. It's not the simplest thing to do, but I'll certainly take it over the whole, let's just blow away buildings and turn them into surface level parking lots. I'm not saying I'll fight someone on that, but I'll certainly argue with about it, because that is just not what we need more of. Oh boy, we've been gone on this topic here for a minute here. So more talking about roads and roadways and what some of those impacts to other buildings might be out of those plans that are being discussed and what's coming out of, nationally lately about it here, because we're due for that next break here already. You're, of course, tuned into Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Coming out of this break, we'll get more into that about roadways, redevelopment, and, well, what we got going on and what the national conversation, statewide focus anyway, might have to do with that. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Justin Creed, your CBS 4 News update. Officers arrested a 22-year-old man for trying to damage a police car. Investigators say they arrested Manuel Martinez on Tuesday. It happened right in front of police headquarters downtown El Paso after an officer allegedly saw him throw a rock at a marked police car. The Healing Gardens at Escalante Park may become a national memorial. Yesterday, a bill introduced by El Paso Congresswoman Veronica Escobar made its way through a subcommittee on national parks, forests, and land. The garden honored the 2019 Walmart victims and their families. The garden was unveiled on August 3rd of last year, marking 2 years since the Walmart attack. We'll see if NMSU can break a 29-year slump today. The Aggies have been regulars in the NCAA men's basketball tournament for about the last 10 years, but they haven't won a game in the dance since 1993. The NMSU basketball account has been tweeting all day, sharing their photos from their practices and the arena there in Buffalo, New York. Tip-off against UConn Huskies is at 4:50 today, Mountain Time. With your CBS 4 News update, I'm Justin Cree.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound at Geronimo, watch for delays. An accident there is blocking the 2 right lanes, and we've got a backup to Airway so far. Gateway Boulevard, westbound at Lee Trevino, an accident there. I-10 westbound at Mesa, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. I-10 westbound at Thorne, a semi-big rig blocking the right shoulder there, and generally slow traffic on the 10 westbound from Wrestler to Thorne, about a 10-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
In Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Thursday's cold front certainly brought the wind and the cooler temperatures, but now for Friday, you can expect lighter winds and warmer temperatures. As we get into Sunday and Monday, we've got another system moving in, bringing back some winds, bringing back some cooler temperatures, and this time around, bringing back a chance for some rain to kick off next week.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Breakfast, now with a free drink with any breakfast sandwich purchase. The number one pick is in. Wendy's Breakfast, the official breakfast of March Madness. Choose your starting lineup, like the Breakfast Baconator or Honey Butter Chicken Biscuit, and enjoy oven-baked bacon, fresh cracked eggs, seasoned breakfast potatoes, and Simply OJ. Choose wisely, choose Wendy's.
Grab your family and watch the 2022 iHeartRadio Music Awards Red Carpet Live, presented by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
I want to see everybody. Shout out to all who got vaccinated, got your kids vaccinated.
So events like this are safer and just more enjoyable for all.
Live stream the exclusive Red Carpet pre-show March 22nd at 7/6 Central on iHeartRadio's Facebook and YouTube channel.
Thank you guys so much.
Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov.
New on Curiosity Stream.
One small step for man.
Hear the untold story of how the first mission to the moon almost ended in disaster.
Without that circuit breaker, they simply couldn't launch. If Armstrong and Aldrin weren't able to come home, how do you handle that as a nation?
On 1 hour that changed the world. And AI can think like us and act like us, but how close is it to replacing us? Find out on Becoming Human. It's all on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Are you covered by Medicare and Medicaid? Well, El Paso Health Plus is the plan for you. As a local Medicare Advantage plan, we can offer our members more. Call us at 833-742-3125 or ephmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus.
Liberty. Nobody should have to pay for one-size-fits-all insurance coverage. Liberty Mutual customizes your car and home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
This report is sponsored by Liberty Mutual Insurance, where you only pay for what you need.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. Getting slightly corrected here, actually, about, again, before my time, so I will plead that here, but that the Crest building, it was not exactly like a mall, but they did have a nice soda fountain, but otherwise was a 5 and dime, which is, you know, actually, if you want to talk about the continuing impact of that, the owners of that whole chain franchise system I don't think it was a franchise, actually. They're the ones that endowed some of the major collections over at the El Paso Art Museum. So a lot of impact that comes from that. But, okay, I stand corrected. But it sounds like maybe they're wanting it to go into that kind of a thing going forward because the way it's being talked about anyway. Again, El Paso Inc. got a good article. El Paso Times has one as well, that it will involve a lot of potential, the stores in there, meeting spaces, other things. Oh, the owners will allow El Paso County to use meeting spaces there, but there's a lot of possibilities. A lot of stores of different kind of possibilities in there. Again, I'm excited to watch the future of it because I think it would make sense as kind of maybe an indoor mall concept. But we'll see what happens. A lot of possibilities in between now and then. But otherwise, talking more about the development of downtown, John Brazelton said a little bit earlier when we were talking about the expansion of I-10, get rid of those buildings. The interstate is much more important. Let's put that back in perspective here. I actually do have the map up available, I do believe. Yeah, because it was kind of in reference to that whole downtown deck area that was being talked about. So here's the map that we have from that potential study, or the area impacted here. So this includes I-10 itself here. That's what that deck area. But these would also be the areas on the north side of it that would include what could be blown away if I-10 were to be expanded. So we're talking, again, that area, if you see there, in between Yandle and I-10, essentially. So again, this is specifically about the downtown deck that was being proposed, which is separate from this project, but includes the same areas here. So if you look at the north side of that, again, the top part of that yellow bar there, showing that several blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks potentially being blown away. Okay, not full blocks, but those whole areas where, that again, people live, people have businesses. So I am sure they will have some words to be discussed about that. And another interesting aspect of it, again, let's call it statewide, but more focus kind of coming from it nationally. U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, the headline from from the Texas Tribune in this case, Buttigieg thinks high-speed rail would be good for Texas, want highway expansions to consider neighborhood impact. So kind of what, among other people, the city council did kind of ask for in that vote that happened earlier this week, but also the Sunset Heights Neighborhood Association has been very vocal. We've had previous guests on talking about those kind of standpoints here. So definitely of concern, and I've seen more than a couple of people in town also talking about maybe kind of an anti-highway thing, pointing out to other cities that have removed mass transit and high traffic areas from their otherwise downtown business corridors, because it does kind of beg a question like, sure, the idea of being able to get downtown easier is an okay one, but does it really facilitate the needs of a community, or is it just a way to, centralize things and not have to worry about transit overall? I mean, the amount of conceptually, because I don't think this is anywhere near the realm of possibility right now, but the idea of moving I-10 away from downtown, now you kind of pretty quickly run out of room to do that. I mean, if you look not too far from our station here, within a couple hundred yards of each other, you've got both the Doniphan Paisano interchange, the Border Highway West Extension, I-10, and then Mesa. And if there was one good fault crack, you'd lose all of the major arteries of this side of town if there were to be just one catastrophic, geologic event over there. The real estate to work with this is pretty minimal, which is why, among other things, there's been a lot of focus on the whole Loop 375, even if you then run into Trans Mountain issues with that. I wouldn't be surprised if into the probably medium to long-term future, there's more focus on even like the Anthony's Gap area and then maybe 54 and the connections there. If you haven't been out that way, the last time I was a few years ago, they've actually put in some roundabouts, which I have a love-hate relationship with, but kind of with an eye towards that, it feels like. So some of the things being talked about, again, from the national standpoint, but on the state level focused here, that there is, talk about how to even go about these projects here. And again, love him or hate him, because it doesn't seem to be much in between. I guess I'm ambivalent about him. Buttigieg, that talking about high-speed rail, which I would be very surprised if it came anywhere here before long. But then again, talking about the highway systems, he had the interview that he has with the Tribune about wanting to have more input on it. Don't know if any of that would come in time for the cycle of projects we're already dealing with here in town, but I'm sure the debates will continue. Absolutely here. Keith Wilden over on the Facebook page saying, reminds me of the member of the County Historical Commission and his remark of, why do we need these old buildings? again, I think that we disregard our own history at our own peril. And this is not just the history buff in me, but again, you go to places that have no sense of themselves because they demolished it all. And you feel it. It just feels sanitized. I don't mean to pick on Las Cruces here today, but their downtown corridor, I mean, there's plenty of life. Like I love the Coas bookstore and some of the businesses they have up there. But yeah, it's if you don't have the sense of place, it just feels less for it. I mean, I'll not exactly a hill I'll die on when it comes to that, but we have a preference here and an ability to choose, keeping the historical nature of it while still facilitating current use and not just having, again, ruins, kind of a good standpoint. I think that's the sweet spot that I am going to argue El Paso has come into its own in beginning to inhabit, along with projects, including like the revitalization of the Crest building. There have been other, small businesses that have come into some of those businesses around it. It just comes down to what is the investment we are willing to make into our own community and then actually go out and support. And I think that, frankly, I think enough of El Paso's downtown historic building stock managed to make it through the periods of neglect what was the legal phrase being used? Demolition by neglect? Yeah, those fun things. We've lost a few, make no mistake. And some have now been repurposed, rebuilt, or demolished, unfortunately. But that there has, I think, lucked into, because we saw the whole post-war era of the, moving to the suburbs, the whole suburban revolution that we saw in this country. I mean, I still, the whole white picket fence, even if it's the, rock fence here in our area, and the idea of having your own lot, your own house, your own building is still very persuasive. We see a lot of that currents in our own area, but I think El Paso has managed to basically have its downtown survive more or less intact, more or less, again, finer points can be argued here, to then it come back around because now some, the younger generations, particularly, technically mine included, is now more interested in the idea of, but I want to live somewhere where you can do things and not necessarily have to drive to it. And I think El Paso's downtown is actually very well positioned to take advantage of that, as long as we don't screw it up too bad with other projects, shall we say. I mean, I think the downtown ballpark, frankly, with the downtown ballpark, a lot of this ends up coming up. Set the precedent for if we want to look at major venues in El Paso, should be set for the future. That you want a big new venue in downtown, you want a big public space to do things and public, furnished by public money. You just got to destroy City Hall for it. Blow up City Hall, press that button, build it there, and I think everyone will go along with it. Actually, I think the current City Hall would be a pretty good location for another venue arena, so to speak, because it's not right next to a bunch of other things. It's got some decent access, could probably put it around it. The biggest issue there would absolutely be the railroads, which is its own intractable bit of nature. But I'm not in charge of these decisions. I just like putting that idea out there whenever we get a chance here. Some conversation coming about that Anthony's Gap area. RJ saying, love the Gap roundabout, quick way for me to Las Cruces, and roundabouts are just a blast to drive. Just drive crazy. I hope you're not one of those people that are your policy when it comes to a roundabout is drive straight on and floor it, because I've seen those videos. John Brousselton saying El Paso was created because it was located a snow-free pass, started because of the east-west transportation roads and railroads. I'll argue with, again, the finer points of our history existed well before that, but you can pretty well define El Paso history as before and after railroads. I will grant you that, but look at how we've dealt with railroads, among other things. We have removed them from literal impediments of downtown, used to bifurcate downtown, among other things, to now being out of the way. So just saying, there might be some ways we can deal with current transportation needs and also keep in mind, what we need to use as a community here. And Keith Wilden dragging up the hits here, as Leon used to say, referring to, of course, a previous radio host of the El Paso History Radio Show here, the Leon Metz Show back in the day. At that point, as Leon used to always say, we have a hell of a lot of historical parking lots. And I got to say, I'm kind of done with that as a public policy standpoint of supporting that. So, I think that... and Keith Wilden pointing out further on that even earlier than that, North-South Santa Fe Chihuahua trade, the Camino Real that we've actually done not a bad job of recognizing. It's gotten better in recent years when it comes to the signs, particularly if you're down along Doniphan or even parts of the lower valley. You can see the signs marking both the Mission Trail and the whole Don Juan de Oñate Trail. Andrew Zinger saying that I'm all for any kind of development as long as it's done with private money and not having to be kicked in by the taxpayers. Unfortunately, most of the major projects I've covered, anyway, have often ended up being those public-private partnerships, mostly along the lines of tax rebates for not exactly the foreseeable future, but for long enough that whatever the form the project may take after, short-term needs are considered, it gets a little murky, I will say, but a lot more to get into that, and we'll have to do that here in this next break. Coming out of this break, we'll get more into this, and we'll go ahead and open that phone line as we do at this point in the show, usually anyway. So if you're wanting to call in, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Got to, again, take that break, back on the lines and the phones here after this with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound at Geronimo working with an earlier crash. It's now down to one right lane that's blocked, just one lane blocked. Still a delay, a minor backup. Loop 375 at the 54 Patriot. The right shoulder is blocked from a stalled vehicle there. Gateway Boulevard westbound at Lee Trevino. It's a stall that's causing the backup there with the right shoulder blocked. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Panera. With Panera's You Pick Two, create your perfect meal with over 465 pairings to satisfy every mood. Feeling fresh? Hello Asian Crunch Salad. Feeling bold? Yes, Thai chicken soup. Panera, the familiar made fantastic. $1 delivery on their app.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness? Modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Mass Mutual knows that your finances can be an uncomfortable conversation.
Mark, we should really talk about our money.
Yep, we really should.
Like we never talk about our savings.
No, we never talk about that. Or our assets.
Or our debt.
Yeah, we really should talk about our debt.
We need one of those financial plans.
One of those will make a difference.
We should talk about it.
We really should.
Talk to us about financial wellness today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/.
Hey guys, it's Edge Martinez. My family's gathering in the kitchen. It's our favorite place to catch up. Keep germs out. I use Lysol on countertops, tables, and the fridge handle. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Something that I like to do when I can't get out and travel, as I'm still considering right now, some of my European plans might be seeing the kibosh put on them lately, but that doesn't mean that I still can't take my taste buds around the world. And the way you can do that as well by going to Enhanced Flavors, your local source of over 40 quality flavored olive oils, extra virgin olive oils, and balsamic vinegars. They'll have olive oils imported from all around the world: Tunisia, Italy, Greece, and Spain, but of course their balsamic vinegars straight from the Modena province of Italy. And you can find them out in the community here. They're going to be out at the Upper Valley Farmers Market the next couple of Sundays, both this coming one and the one after that one, of course, right there in the edge of the Upper Valley, anyway, at the Hobby Lobby parking lot there on Mesa near Crossroads. But, of course, you can find them online at enhancedflavors.com. Try out what they got. Again, 40 varieties, some of the ones that I like a lot and have been trying not to finish off my bottle too fast of their dark balsamic vinegar, Mediterranean blend, honey fig, and pistachio. Honestly, try it on ice cream. They got some of the good varieties. Find what works for you and really get out there and spice up your life. Again, find them at those farmers markets or enhancedflavors.com. Again, enhancedflavors.com.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Coming around the bend here on the last break of this hour, but of course we'll be back here for the 5 o'clock hour. But I did put out that phone number here if people are wanting to interact with the show. Of course, the number to call there, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Got to get the A in there, the 915, that is, the prefix to make sure you get the number correctly dialed. But some more comments coming in as well. Andrew Zignaret saying public-private partnerships called crony capitalism. You know, tell you what, I've got a story we're going to get into, another one of the ones from today, about next hour that I'd like to get your interpretation on that concept here of picking, public picking winners and losers of private corporations. But also Keith Wilden putting out there, as a certain retired radio host always stated, 500 years of history, and as a city, we ignore it. Got some more thoughts on that as well, but got at least one call on the line here. Again, the number to do so, 915-544-5876. 544-KTSM. We do have Al on the east side here with us right now. Al, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. I've got 2 questions for you. Well, maybe 3.
Okay, shoot.
First question is, what good does it do to be able to get downtown if there's nothing to get downtown to, because we've destroyed it all with the highway? Second question, why does everything have to be downtown or the west side? What about the east side, except for houses and shopping malls? It's back to you. Thanks.
I mean, no, those are good questions, and ones that I think are important questions for people to ask when we look at how our public policy is moving forward and what we're getting out of it. And yeah, great access, or it reminds me of an old joke that, the food is so awful and the portions are so tiny. Kind of a separate issue here, but it's so easy to get to there. But what are you going to do when you get there? I think the private sector is kind of getting there with bringing more stuff into downtown, and sure, the venues that have been coming online, but yeah, really getting people to do that. I mean, we've got this whole concept of a central business district that we've got businesses downtown. That certainly is there, but for the average person, I mean, we've seen some stops and starts. I did some coverage some years ago now that I think about it, of like when we had the whole, what was the organization? The huge months-long bowling tournament for the National Bowling Association. Not quite the right organization name, but that you get the idea with it. That saw people coming in tons, constant in and out, because it was this amazing rolling event where they literally built dozens of bowling lanes in the convention center. So there are some possibilities for things to do, and people have been drawn down by things to do, but of course that ended. The bowling lanes, I'm actually not sure what happened to them. I think I saw something about reclaiming the wood and building stuff with it, but that ended. Part of the problem they actually ran into at that point was, well, when it comes to hotels and ability for people to do things downtown, like sure there were a couple of restaurants at that point and the, usual suspects in the downtown area, but it was on a very different order than it is now downtown. So that's a very important question. We'll fully agree with you there. But then to your second part of why does it always have to be downtown? There's a certain infamous study that has been referenced for years now, and I think that it has largely been, well, it doesn't get brought up when it gets to public policy standpoint, but there is still very much you can see the trend. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to really look at the way that very clearly that the professional side of city government, the city manager side of things, is very much locked into this plan, and has been for literal years now. Newer studies have come out since that. I'm forgetting the name of it offhand, so I think someone will probably remind me before too long. It would make sense to do a little bit more we've seen some more development that has happened again on the private sector kind of things, like among other things, Top Golf, the iFly, and those kind of things here. But yeah, everything being downtown, particularly when it comes to the transportation issues, because I mean, the last time I went to a Chihuahuas game, it was a little bit dicey to get around. And the last time I tried to go to anything at UTEP, for that matter, some of the major events that happen over there, going to be perfectly honest, I have considered parking here at the station and walking over there because it's just a mess sometimes. So we've got issues that come with it. I'd love to see more public transit. I think someone a little bit earlier referenced certain debacles involving the trolley overall. Andrew Zigner, another economic boondoggle like the trolley system here. That's another one of those things that clearly was envisioned by someone who wasn't going to have to use it, and more of a, I mean, I hesitate to call it a tourist attraction because for like everyday public transit use, it doesn't make the most sense. I'm not aware of just a ton of demand to transit from UTEP to downtown or vice versa, or even necessarily that corridor, unless you have kind of a like tourist idea in mind. But I don't see that being a draw either. And frankly, the issues that might come with that, with this whole I-10 project, leave some questions up in the air about viability, among other things. But that's a whole nother show on its own. But okay, to your general idea with both of your questions here, what are we actually wanting from downtown? Now, of course, the whole ballpark blowing up of City Hall in order to accomplish it still is an interesting precedent that has been set that I think we should follow through. But I mean, there was the whole idea about what about the existing baseball at the time facilities that we had with Cohen Stadium, that of course blown away in its own right. It is now a water park. I've passed by there. It looks like it's in operation. I haven't actually stepped foot on it myself here, but I mean, the fact that there is some open, empty space in other places, but the focus seems to be solely on downtown. So, tell you what, I'm not going to dodge the question, but say the best person to ask this to would be your elected representative for city council, because they are the ones ultimately that may not be fully putting into place the plan, but directing how the plan should be done. So, I'm going to say that's the real person you should ask that question to, because we can have a conversation as much as we want, but they're the ones actually then putting that plan in place here. So, we'll talk more about this in the coming hour as well. We got to end up taking that top of the hour break for the news right now. But we get more into this. Again, a couple more stories we're going to be talking about next hour, in addition to such as, with all of the issues going on with energy prices, what is Texas doing for companies that are saying, maybe we'll look at other things? Talk more about that. Stay tuned. Talk El Paso after the top of the hour news.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 westbound at Geronimo, that earlier crash is still blocking one right lane. You got a minor backup there. On Loop 375 westbound at the 54 Gateway Patriot, right shoulder's blocked because of a stalled vehicle. Gateway westbound at Lee Trevino, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. And Lee Trevino just south of the 10 Gateway, an injury accident with police on the scene. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey, El Paso, this is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We've extended Ram truck months, and deals are even bigger and better with 0% interest, more for your trade, huge savings, and a huge selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles, with more arriving daily.
Buy now and get huge savings during Ram Truck Month at Southern Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer, full-size SUV with third-row seating. 2022 Ram trucks with 0 APR for 72 months, 0 down, 0 payments for 90 days. Upside down on your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Southern Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying your truck is fun. At I-10 at Southern Park Drive or online at southernparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso Strong. Excludes factory rebate at dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APRs, $13.89 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
It's Women's History Month, and iHeartMedia is proud to support Dress for Success's annual campaign, Your Hour, Her Power, which highlights the importance and impact of female leadership. Here's one of this year's honorees, Scarlett Johansson, American actor and founder of The Outset.
Dress for Success, thank you for making it possible for so many women to celebrate and realize a new beginning and transform their lives.
Join the mission at yourhourherpower.org.
I spent a lot of time in the garage, but even more time in the rain and mud. In 95, I helped tow your moving trailer. And in 09, it was sparks from me, your chains. dragging behind your truck that accidentally started a wildfire.
Spark a change, not a wildfire. Visit SmokeyBear.com. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Russia is killing children in Ukraine, along with other innocent civilians. That's according to Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He said he agrees with President Biden's labeling of Russian President Vladimir Putin as a war criminal. Blinken also confirmed the news that an American citizen has been killed in Ukraine, but had no other details. President Biden will be candid and direct in talks with Chinese President Xi tomorrow. Biden will try to determine whether China is planning to help Russia during the ongoing invasion of Ukraine. White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki noted Beijing has not denounced the invasion.
We have made clear our deep concerns about China's alignment with Russia and the potential implications of that.
The House has voted to halt normal U.S. trade relations with Russia. A bill is being sent to the Senate after easy passage by the House. It would boost tariffs on Russian goods coming into the U.S. One person is dead and multiple others are being taken to the hospital from outside police headquarters in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. A county transit bus is parked outside the building. However, it's unclear how it's connected to this incident. At least 5 people are dead following a 40 to 50 vehicle pileup on a Missouri interstate south of Cape Girardeau. Officials are reporting several more people were rushed to local hospitals. The Missouri State Highway Patrol said emergency responders are actively processing the scene. U.S. basketball star Brittany Griner is getting her arrest extended by a Russian court.
Griner will remain in Russian custody until at least May 19th. The WNBA star was arrested on allegations of drug smuggling significant amounts of a narcotic substance at an airport in Moscow. Griner has been in custody since February 17th. I'm Dina Kodiak.
The Dow jumped 417 points to 34,480. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is making another public appearance as reports surface he's mulling a run again for his old position.
Cuomo spoke to a meeting with New York Hispanic clergy in the Bronx, but didn't offer any new specifics to his political future.
I have a lot of options. I'm open to all of them.
Sources tell CNBC that Cuomo has been talking with supporters and doing internal polling. A recent poll shows Cuomo only a few points behind current Governor Kathy Hochul in a hypothetical primary matchup. Lisa G., New York.
Atlanta-based Delta Airlines is announcing a pay raise for its employees. Company officials say workers will receive a 4% pay hike. This comes as air travel is increasing and the company is trying to hire additional workers to meet the needs of customers. The pay increase will go into effect on May 1st. Officials performed cloud seeding in Northern California. Jordan Christmas explains.
A plane was cloud seeding in the Sierra this week to make it rain. With Northern California's traditional rainy season having gone dry, some water and power agencies are taking to the skies in hopes of boosting rain and snowfall through a practice known as cloud seeding. The process artificially increases the amount of precipitation from the clouds. A spokesperson from SMUD says we see an average of a 3 to 10% increase in snowpack as a result. In other words, an area that might normally see snowfall equal to 50 inches of rainfall could produce up to 55 inches.
If you're celebrating St. Paddy's Day today, be sure you're spelling it correctly. Some people spell the abbreviation with 2 T's, which the experts say is incorrect. St. Patrick is the English version of an Irish Gaelic name, which is spelled with a D instead of a T, and so the nickname of the Christian saint would be St. Paddy with 2 D's. Spelling the name incorrectly is considered disrespectful by many, as St. Patrick is Ireland's patron saint. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Celebrate the music you loved listening to all year.
Plus, your favorite artist will take home iHeartRadio Music Awards.
iHeartRadio! Don't miss our 2022 iHeartRadio Music Awards.
Watch exclusively on Fox.
This Tuesday night at 7.
We're all looking forward to getting back to real-life moments. Thanks to COVID vaccines that help prevent severe illness, we can do this. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is proud to help celebrate the iHeartRadio Music Awards. Visit vaccines.gov today.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Breakfast, now with a free drink with any breakfast sandwich purchase. The number one pick is in Wendy's Breakfast, the official breakfast of March Madness. Choose your starting lineup, like the Breakfast Baconator or Honey Butter Chicken Biscuit, and enjoy oven-baked bacon, fresh cracked eggs, seasoned breakfast potatoes, and Simply OJ. Choose wisely, choose Wendy's.
Anyone can get long COVID, even Caitlin, age 20.
I got COVID in November 2020. In January, I started having long-term problems. I was a varsity soccer player in high school, and now I get winded just from walking. I can't remember things. It's just unbearable.
Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the best way to prevent long COVID. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690, KTSM, an iHeart radio station.
Opiates has taken everything and everyone I've ever loved away from me. Everything.
I blew my ankle out and I got prescribed pain pills by my doctor.
If making my detox public is going to help somebody, I'm all for it. I just wish I would have had a warning.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth. A message from Truth, the Ad Council, and ONDCP.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days. Should be up there anyway. Might have been giving us a little bit of a heartache earlier, but it seems to be powering through. We got comments coming in here. Robert Haynes, RJ, John Brazelton, Michael Patras, Keith Weldon, Andrew Zignorant. I think I'm saying that right. Your profile picture is interesting there. And a whole lot more tuning in, chiming in, dropping likes there, Robert Haynes, among others. Appreciate it. A lot of conversation about the issues affecting us here in the borderland, including, trade, transportation, transit, all those issues that careen right through downtown, amongst other things. Big in the border highway lately. And yeah, you really want to talk about lack of real estate for a whole lot of the development stuff we get to. I mean, particularly if you're going along the border highway, the extension past downtown, that flying part that is technically over the border wall. I mean, it gets interesting, though, things that we've already had to do with some transportation and development we already see around the area. And some comments coming in about some of those other projects here. John Brazelton saying, every city in America tries to renew their downtown areas. Most are dead. We at least have 2 sports teams and 2 theaters. I mean, we're doing better than most, I would strongly argue, when it comes to downtown redevelopment, but getting it to a natural state and not a having to be induced one. I mean, whether we're there or not is up for debate, I think, with, input and things being done by private individuals like, Paul Foster, the Hunt companies. I mean, the big new skyscraper in downtown. I think that we are, again, it's easy to say we're doing a lot better than most, but there's a lot more issues to be countered there about, those projects, the other areas, and then you start getting into thorny concepts like gentrification and things like that also come up in the conversation here. But RJ, about the trolley, and the trolley is quite a focus, I will admit here, saying we're not San Fran. What were they thinking about a trolley? I mean, I'll argue on the historical aspect. I mean, some of those, I believe most of, if not all of them, are actually the trolleys that used to be down there. But the usefulness of the way they're implemented now versus how they used to be is debatable. Among other things, there used to be the border crossing trolley, and I just see no way in hell of that happening in any way, shape, or form anytime soon. So whether or not that, I guess the real difference there was usefulness to the community and usefulness as a feature. I mean, it's halfway a tourist item right now that doesn't really attract tourists in my mind anyway. So I would love to see it more of an actual light rail concept being applied to El Paso and put down transit corridors. Like let's take one down Texas Avenue. Let's take one down Montana and then one up Mesa, things like that. You'll find a little bit better use for them, I think, here. Robert Haynes saying if the trolley went along the entire length of Mesa Street, then I would ride it daily. Exactly. They're making it useful to a community and not just a feature, a nice thing to look at. I think it was a little bit of, well, we got this money in, we got to use it or lose it. They kind of went into it. I mean, we're digging a little bit into recent history with that, but yeah, I'd like to see a little bit more functionality over form when it comes to some of those projects here. RJ saying, yeah, you use them, remember using them as a kid, and it made sense to use them downtown and to cross the bridge, but clearly not where we are anymore. I have, of course, threatened to open up those phone lines here, and they are open now. If you're wanting to call in during the show, besides leaving your comments, more than welcome to over on the Facebook page, but calls accepted certainly as well. The number to do so there, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Do have Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Excuse me. Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely.
I'm way off topic here, but I was, you recall I called regarding Title 42, how they were lifting the unaccompanied minor children's provision from Title 42, and also the $90 million contract with Endeavor, the 6-month contract, $15 million a month. Well, CNN is reporting today that the U.S. is preparing for a mass migration, which I would call invasion, of 170,000 illegal immigrants who are, they're stating, within hours of our border. In addition to the 25,000 illegal immigrants that are already sheltered in Mexico, and they expect them to flood our borders too because of Title 42. So to prepare for this, the DHS set up a Southwest Border Coordination Center at their headquarters. Well, this is a novel idea. They should set that here at the border so they can see what chaos their policies are creating in our communities. But they believe that that's due diligence on their part, creating that committee or coordination center at their headquarters. So that is disheartening for us. And the next thing is, I don't understand, and I haven't heard, but Mayorkas was in Mexico and Costa Rica. This is the first time I hear anything about Costa Rica. What is he doing there? I'm sure he's coordinating with, Mexico to slow down the ant operations. They are on their way to the U.S. That's frightening if there are ant operations. Plus, there are 170,000 within hours of our border. I mean, good Lord. I'm wondering why we haven't heard anything. I didn't receive an email or anything from Congressman Escobar's office. I haven't heard anything from Mayor Lisa or Samaniego preparing the community for this, or cautioning us or alerting us or advising us how many people are going to be coming to El Paso, because we are one of the cities that they have designated to house these illegal immigrants while they're processing them. That's also alarming to the citizens of El Paso. But one of the things that's going on with Mayorkas, or on Mayorkas' part, is Chip Roy. He's a representative from the state of Texas. I don't know which district he's from, but he's preparing articles of impeachment for Mayorkas. He should be impeached. And then the American people should file a class action suit and prosecute him for not abiding by the oath of office that he took to secure our borders and to follow the laws under the Constitution. I mean, we can't have people, representatives like him, lying to the American people, saying our borders are closed, and yet look at all the preparation they've been doing, who knows for how many weeks, knowing that we're having 170,000 people on the way to the U.S. Now they're within hours of our borders, is what CNN is reporting. We don't have any honesty or transparency in this government that we can rely on. There is nothing that they say or do that benefits the country or the citizens or our sovereignty. I mean, how in the world do we continue this path for another 3 years if this is what they're doing behind our backs? And then we learn about it hours before these 170,000 illegal immigrants are from our borders. This is frightening. This is alarming. I just don't understand how we're going to survive 3 years of this administration.
I mean, yeah, the frustrations with this administration and on its border response, I mean, I wish they were as loud with the don't come as they are with many other policy positions that they put forth here. I mean, all that the uncertainty that has been created by it is being one hell of a sales pitch when it comes to the cartels that are raking in the money about this. So, yeah, definitely share your frustrations with that. Would love to see them being a lot more active on the security side of border issues and border security, because that is the part that, well, there have been some bills come out here lately. One of the other ones I was looking at actually came in right before the show here, believe it or not, from Cornyn, Sinema, Langford, and Kelly, senators, introduced bill to increase Border Patrol agents' overtime pay, which seems like, I mean, not necessarily a bad thing, but is a stopgap at best, because we've been long hearing about the overstretched nature of, you know, anyone involved in the federal agencies involved in this enforcement and response right now being stretched thin as it is. And so, sure, giving them more money I'm not necessarily opposed to, but really more resources, manpower, etc., staffing is what's really needed for that, because that's kind of what it really comes down to in my mind here. And yeah, found the CNN article you're referring to there. $170,000 first reported by Axios are within hours or days of the U.S.-Mexico border. This does, of course, further on what we've heard from some other previous guests on the show, including Todd Ben's been talking about the 70,000 preparing to move through Mexico and the whole ANT operation as it's been discussed here. So, I mean, again, I have said for more than a year now, I feel like, if not at least, that calling this a crisis should not be a partisan thing, but it keeps coming down to that. So would love to see more response here. We'll say that the point you bring up there about local officials or even city officials hasn't really been a feature even previously, but I will say outside of the kind of current migration wave we've seen over the last few years, usually hadn't been as much of a focus here in El Paso. We were seeing the kind of same historic currents, or recent history currents, I guess you should say, but the mass amounts that I've seen, I mean, every time I've been driving down the border highway, because it's been a couple of times, not recently, but in recent years, that I have seen some of those groups of people gathered out there with Border Patrol dealing with them at that moment here. We are seeing different patterns, and maybe we do need to look at more of a local response here to it, because, I mean, with these level of numbers, I mean, this would be more than we've seen in months, and condensed into a single month here, if that's happening. So something we'll definitely have to keep an eye on, but maybe something that our local leaders should be a little bit more engaged with. I think that would, at the very least, prepare the community for what we might be seeing. I mean, talking about issues going on with shelters in the state as well. There's a lot that goes into this here, but I think that talking about it is something we certainly do on this program.
Well, Andrew, you know that overtime pay is just going to add to the exhaustion of the Border Patrol.
Yeah.
And in the article, CNN saying is that DHS is asking for volunteers at the border. I mean, seriously. Volunteers, I'd probably go over there and volunteer and tell them to go back home. I'm sorry. You know, enough is enough. So, and you know, an interesting question to your callers would be, did anybody get an email from Escobar's office advising them about this invasion at our border? That would be an interesting question to ask and answers to get, because I didn't get anything.
I haven't either. I'll say the last one I got, was well, this is more of a press email about upcoming talked about here, that she appeared on MSNBC Jose Diaz ballot reports about, actually the address of Title 42 was an expected talk about it here, but I missed that report myself. I'll have to try to search that up here now myself as well. None of them looking at it, but yeah, nothing specific on that, I will admit.
Thank you, Andrew.
No, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call, because it's important to discuss these things, even if it can be hard to get your arms around it sometimes here. And to your other question here before I let you go, yeah, there was Mayorkas. I think I had heard something about this, but hadn't followed up on it. Was doing a tour again through Central and South America. Yahoo News source coming up for me immediately saying, agreeing to work together on strengthening immigration and border policing in the Central American country during the visit by Mayorkas. And that they will be Costa Rica, Panama, and Mexico establishing visa requirements that are supposed to make it more difficult for Venezuelans and Cubans to transit through their countries to U.S. territory. But we'll see what the actual, I mean, Mayorkas has talked a lot, particularly in our region when visiting through it, and the results of it will remain to be seen in a lot of those ways here. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. We are overdue for a break right now, so we are taking those calls, of course, here. So if you wanted to call in, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. If you're on the line, stay there. If you want to call in, that's the number to do so, 915-544-5876. Back after this break, more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Police responding to an accident I-10 eastbound at Paisano, I-10 westbound at Geronimo. That accident is finally cleared up. All lanes are back open. There's a slight backup back to Hawkins. I-10 eastbound between Artcraft and Thorne, it's slow and go with about 5-minute delays. Same for the westbound side between Wrestler and Thorne. And Yarborough, southbound at Montana Avenue, an accident reported there. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples Print and Marketing Services help small businesses print big with wide format signs and banners. Right now, get $10 off custom printed signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. Offer ends 3/26. Visit staples.com/signage for details. Staples, the working and learning store.
New on Curiosity Stream.
One small step for man.
Hear the untold story of how the first mission to the moon almost ended in disaster.
Without that circuit breaker, they simply couldn't launch. If Armstrong and Aldrin weren't able to come home, how do you handle that as a nation?
On 1 hour that changed the world. And AI can think like us and act like us, but how close is it to replacing us? Find out on Becoming Human. It's all on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit Curiosity Stream.
Is your current home loan the right fit for you? Near historically low rates combined with rising home values means that you could have more home equity than you might imagine. And if you're considering a refi, an expertly chosen loan from Loan Depot could save you thousands. Ask about our smart term loans, cash out, and over 300 loan options to find just the right mortgage loan for you. Call now, 866-888-LOAN, or go to loandepot.com. Loan Depot, where home means everything. Rates are subject to change. Equal housing opportunity lender. And MLS number 174457. Licensed in all 50 states.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to this exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/free. That's ziprecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of 2 people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're talking about here today. A lot of stuff and ways you can interact with the show. Of course, we've got the social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch if you want to comment over there. A lot of stuff coming in. John Brazelton, Michael Perez, RJ, and more Louis Pinato as well. Mark Rios. Mike Rios, am I saying that right? Anyway, you want to see the comments for yourself along with Robert Haynes and more, and Keith Wilden a little bit earlier. Tune in, chime in over there. You can also see the full show and some of the graphics we put up as well, if you're interested in doing so. Otherwise, of course, got that phone line open, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A few things on my mind today, of course, downtown redevelopment, something I always pay attention to, but also, of course, downtown transit and transportation, the whole I-10 project, and the impact that could have, potentially have, the options available, the response we've been seeing already. One other thing I want to just put the point out on there that, of course, along with transportation, it's kind of hard to ignore energy prices lately. One local-ish story coming out of that here about from our news partners over at KFOX 14. Man rides electric bike from Northeast El Paso to UTEP to stay on high gas prices. I mean, applaud the, utility and ingenuity of finding a way to do it here, but that's not exactly something I'm going to think is going to work for everyone here. But also Texas taking its own stance, I guess you could say. Well, based on a law that passed, we talked a lot about the stuff that came out of the last Texas legislative series of sessions, I guess is the right way to put it. But now one of them, Senate Bill 13, that relating to state contracts with and investments in certain companies that boycott energy companies. More specifically, both reported on by the Texas Tribune, and a release put out earlier this week by the Texas Controller of Public Accounts, that Texas company controller Glenn Hagar seeks information from 19 companies that may be boycotting fossil fuel industry. Also being referred to as divestment, that major companies that are no longer again divesting or being called as a boycott officially under a law under Senate Bill 13 will no longer be accepted to do contracts with the state of Texas. So that's a current going through. And of course, the oil and gas industry, very important here in Texas. But just to that point that was coming up earlier when we're talking about public-private partnerships, the whole corruption, cronyism that can come along with it, the idea of the state choosing, I mean, they're not forbidden from doing business in Texas, but of course, Texas is a very large state with a very large role of public accounts and contracts available to it. Just curious about the input and interest in saying that if you're not involved with oil and gas or have divested yourself of it as a private business, you're no longer able to do business. I think that has some implications that will be significant going forward here, but certainly open to calls and comments on that. But let's get back to those phone lines right now. Again, the number to call there is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. RJ actually making a good point here that we can call our representatives and senators at 202-225-3121. I'm assuming you got the main switchboard there, and let DC know how we feel. Each call represents 1,000 constituents to them, and if calls can put a score in there with and stick it in the air in the governing ways. I think you're talking about taking the air currents there. Didn't think I read that right, but I fully encourage everyone to get involved in politics, voting, of course, but also contacting the representatives because they are supposed to represent us. But let's get to those calls on the line. We do have Harry on the east side here right now. Harry, thanks for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon, El Paso. Harry the horse here. Some general comments, Andrew. Your call screener is phenomenal. She's fantastic. I enjoy talking with her.
Good to know.
And also Barbara and Raul, they make some good comments. I really appreciate listening to their comments, believe it or not. And I know I'm not supposed to get personal on the line, but anyway.
Okay.
Let me take you down memory lane here.
Sure.
I got to El Paso in 1977. Now, I know there's a lot of people that were born here and got here before me, but I just want to bring back, the gentleman talked about the east side having some, not as many events as the west side. Well, we've had some great things. In my opinion, let's bring back the El Paso Diablos. And Jonathan Rogers, for starters, okay? And please open the Brown Bag Deli downtown. They made some of the best sandwiches in the downtown area for many years, okay? And as far as the Far East Side, the Franklin Steakhouse used to be a good distance out in Montana heading east, actually, towards Carlsbad. And they had a beautiful steakhouse out there where you could sit out there and have a good meal. And they put on those old vaudeville shows where you could hiss and boo and throw popcorn at them, which was, I haven't seen anything like that since then. And I mean, anywhere. Also, I'd like to let the folks know that when I got here at the corner of Lee Trevino and Montana, there was a drive-in movie theater, movie theater. And those things went the way of Harry Truman. George Dieter now was nothing but desert. Desert. We rode motorcycles out there and shotguns out there. And there was not a living person, Andrew, between there and Horizon City. And at that time, there wasn't a whole lot going on in Horizon City.
Well, yeah, I can imagine.
The history of that, a lot of people don't know. At that time, the only attraction that you had in Horizon City was Lee Trevino's golf course. And I have found by talking to a lot of folks here in El Paso, and I love to talk to folks. I babble. I don't do computers. I just do.
Fair enough.
And I couldn't talk for 10 years, so I'm making up for a lot of that. But anyway, Lee Trevino, for those folks who don't know, was one of the greatest golfers in the history of golf. And that's why his name, they built a street out here after him. And he had a house in Horizon City, which was an attraction. And lo and behold, look at Horizon City today and all the property and land between George Theater and Horizon City. But I just wanted to make those comments. And the downtown ballpark, the old El Paso Diablos, and I know they changed their name and they built a new park and everything, but I'll tell you, there was some good old days here, Andrew, and the folks of El Paso, so.
Oh, absolutely. I, as a young man and younger man, was able to go out and, enjoy Cohen Stadium and, Diablo's games. And it was fun for what it was. I mean, there were some, business decisions involved in that. And I would love to see it come back and just maybe more of a venue also in that part of town. I know a lot of people live out in Northeast, particularly recently with there being actually a service outage. I don't think we talked about it on air. A service outage coming up briefly with El Paso Water. So buckle up for that, y'all, if you haven't been prepared or know when that date is. But, the people in Northeast have long felt kind of languishing with not much attention put onto them, particularly, the whole Dyer corridor. There might be some more road construction coming down the line, the whole Northwest Parkway potential that is, I've seen plans for it. I don't know exactly when they're going to happen, but certainly something to be, griped about a bit because they've not had much out there. With the closing of the mall that they did have in that section, it would make sense to me to maybe spread out some of the entertainment and the venues and things. The one thing I will say for the east side over the west side or even central is they got a ton more variety of restaurants over there, but that's also a much larger area, so I think it makes sense. But Lee Trevino being named after the golfer, I think for my generation and younger anyway, a lot of people's only experience with Lee Trevino might be the cameo if you looked up who it was in Happy Gilmore. Actually, I do recall seeing that and being told about that. But the history of the whole area, it's changed a lot between, practically Horizon City used to be out on the horizon, hence the name, but now it's practically connecting once you get down along the I-10 corridor and even a little bit further out. It probably will connect before too long. I wouldn't even be surprised if essentially El Paso and Las Cruces connect within my lifetime at least here. But the development that comes along with it certainly important to track here. But I think that what people lose sight of is the demands that come along with that. With sprawling development comes quite a lot of strain on resources and the utilities that come along with it. That's why the new whole Newman power plant that is built along the Montana area was such a focus for El Paso Electric because of the demands we were seeing out there. So growing pains are certainly something we see here in El Paso, and probably we'll see a lot more of it before we get much further along.
Yeah, well, I say congratulations to all the folks on North Mesa. The first Applebee and Chili's were built out there before these things ever come to the east side. But I'll take the east side. I travel North Mesa to Executive Boulevard and down to that beautiful border highway to go out to Sunland Park, where you know my story there.
Absolutely.
And, that's all great stuff, but I'll take the east side. So you folks on the west side, congratulations to you. That's my comments for today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for the point on the call there. RJ chiming in there that about Northeast. We are the redheaded stepchild of El Paso, the redheaded stepchild of Texas, being more specific there. There's more to get into there with the way, and I think that more may be coming, but tell you what, we got to take that break right now. So coming out of the break, we'll get to more of the calls and the comments on the line. Again, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. The National Transportation Safety Board Vice Chairman said today that a 13-year-old was driving the pickup truck that struck a van in West Texas in a fiery collision that killed 9 people. The truck's left front tire was a spare tire and it blew out right before impact. One has to be 14 years old in Texas to start taking a classroom course for a learner's license and 15 to receive a provisional license to drive with an instructor or licensed adult in the car. The Department of Public Safety said a 13-year-old driving would definitely be breaking the law. 6 student-athlete golf players were killed from a private college in New Mexico along with a coach. One of the students killed was from Portugal, one from Mexico, one from Colorado, and the others were from small Texas towns. Also killed were Heinrich Siemens, who was 38 of Seminole County, Texas, and the unidentified 13-year-old boy at the wheel of the 2007 Dodge pickup truck. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 eastbound at Paisano, police responding to an accident there. I-10 westbound at Geronimo, that earlier crash has moved off to the right and all lanes are back open there. There's a short backup to Hawkins right now. I-10 eastbound between Artcraft and Thorne, starting to get heavier, up to 5 to 10 minute delays. A crash with injuries, Zaragoza at Cashew Drive, that's just north of North Loop. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
In Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Thursday's cold front certainly brought the wind and the cooler temperatures, but now for Friday, you can expect lighter winds and warmer temperatures. As we get into Sunday and Monday, we've got another system moving in, bringing back some winds, bringing back some cooler temperatures, and this time around, bringing back a chance for some rain to kick off next week.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has the innovative tech and tools you need to take on the future of work, all at great prices. Right now, save up to $230 on select PCs. In-store only offer ends 3/19, limit 2. Explore what's new for your business at Staples, the working and learning store.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness, modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Hey guys, it's Edge Martinez. My family's gathering in the kitchen. It's our favorite place to catch up. Keep germs out. I use Lysol on countertops, tables, and the fridge handle. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
Don't drive much. Don't pay much with Paper Mile Insurance from Allstate. Life is good when you're in the driver's seat. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today. This report is sponsored by Allstate.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of things we're talking about here today, and if you want to join on the show, more than welcome to. We have those phone lines open right now, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in over on the social pages as well. Steve Ivey wishing us all a happy St. Patrick's Day. Traffic mayhem in the 915 this afternoon. We got new windows here in this studio, so I'll take your word for it to I would get home early if you can. I got my Guinness yesterday, actually. Tried looking for it, and I managed to find, couldn't find it in stores, so managed to find an old one of undeterminate date in the back of my fridge, probably from last year or maybe before. So wish me luck with that. Anyway, I hope you're having a safe and a happy one out there with that. We also have Louis Pinato, RJ, Michael Perez, John Brazelton, and more tuning in and chiming in. Mike Rios, Robert Haynes a little bit earlier. RJ still on the whole Northeast woe is me train here. I mean, again, it's been overlooked a lot, which is why I think the Northeast representative, frankly, has probably more of a burden on them than most elected officials when it comes to, city council anyway in town here, because it's an important one. But yes, I hope you all have a safe and happy one out there. One thing I wanted to bring up actually from our last caller here about drive-ins. I know there's been some attempts to restart some, but there actually is kind of technically still a drive-in here, or again a drive-in here in town, specifically the Blue Moon drive-in. You may have noticed the kind of corrugated tin backdrop that they have when you're going along I-10 near, is that between Copia and Piedras, somewhere right about there, next to Monteleone is part of it here, and it's not, I think, really a drive-in. You go and sit in some of their cars, if I've seen it correctly, but something I've been meaning to check out actually. But it's kind of a drive-in. Anyway, it doesn't quite scratch the itch you need for it, I understand entirely, but I need to go check it out myself here. Always about local in town things, so of course I'm excited when things are happening in town, which is why I also got to mention, I had seen the rumor of it, and then some other outlets confirming here that one of the local barbecue places, Desert Oak Barbecue, is doing an expansion, including going to be back along I-10 here. Anytime I'm out in that way and they're open, I would tend to stop by there. And so, I mean, they're being statewide recognized, which is a tough bill with barbecue in Texas. So congrats to them. Always about what is going on with local businesses here. So happy to say that they're looking at expanding. Got a brand new sign. You can check it out over on their Facebook page at Desert Oak Barbecue. But let's go back to those phone lines. Again, the number to call there, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Do we have Richard in the Northeast with us on the line here right now? Richard, thanks for joining us.
Hello, it's Arizona Richard again. How you doing? Good?
Oh, doing all right there. What's on your mind?
All right. Well, it pleases me to tell you, talking about something local, about the redevelopment plan, which I've been thinking out for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of ideas because I used to be a conceptual designer, and
okay.
I take my experience from my hometown of Phoenix. You know, you're experiencing the growing pains we had 30 years ago, and they're just like behind the eight ball half the time. So I think it's a good idea. I'm sure there's a lot of pros and cons to what's being developed. However, I'm more into historic preservation, so that's kind of where I'm coming from. And I think you need to preserve a lot of that down there. But, other cities, they have redevelopment plans to bring businesses and people back to the downtown area, which they've already done. I just think they need to expand on that. And the other thing I was going to add, in terms of the long term for the transportation and the freeways, specifically I-10, has anybody ever entertained the possibility, I don't know if it's feasible, about doing double-deckers to and out of our downtown, like San Antonio, for example? Because at some point, you're going to have to address that type of infrastructure as the city continues to grow. And lastly, I have a question for you if you wanted to weigh in on what I just commented on.
No, sure thing. I mean, so the closest we've gotten, frankly, a lot of areas of downtown, or not even downtown, surrounding downtown, didn't even have access roads. So that's been the conversation going on before this point. I mean, everything that happened up to Mesa on the west side, and even on the other side of it, was just adding that in. So expansion is still the primary focus here in town. The closest, it's not exactly what you were talking about, but the closest we've gotten to is that map I showed earlier. Let me pop it up again here. That was a discussion about that downtown deck. So not exactly double-decker transportation, but putting essentially a floating park space, I guess the best way to describe it, over I-10 itself to kind of reconnect the neighborhoods, but you can't put like full buildings on it. So not exactly what you were talking about, but closer than, other conversations have been in town in terms of stacking things, but not exactly stacking the actual roadway like I think you were referencing there.
At some point, they're going to have to do something. A quick question for you in the arena of historic preservation, because that's what I'm currently doing now. I went by the old officers' quarters for the old Fort Bliss over there off Paisano, okay? And I noticed it was for sale.
Oh, really?
I know it's on the National Register, but has anybody in the city or historic preservationists going to do anything about that? Because that might be on the endangered list at some point, if that's the avenue it's going to be heading, it'll end up being demolished. And I think that would be a travesty for the city.
Oh,
I don't know if you know
absolutely.
anyone's on board about that, but I would like to contact them if you do know somebody.
I don't know anyone particular on that. We were actually talking about that. We've done a lot of cross-pollination between our shows here today, but we don't usually do. But that was a discussion actually that came up on the previous episode of the El Paso History Radio Show in recent weeks about them being down there. I know there is some redevelopment going on to the property almost immediately adjacent to that along there, the La Hacienda property, and some focus potentially happening on that. But actually, the last I had heard, the officer quarters were kind of just in a status quo as they were, but if they're up for sale, then that does raise some, like you said, some questions here. So I'll have to talk to some people I know about that, and maybe we'll have that featured on this weekend show when it comes to that here, because that would concern me if it is going to potentially be endangered. Absolutely, I'll agree with you there.
I believe it's on the list. It's listed as an endangered. And believe me, if I had the finances, I would buy it myself.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'd get some sponsorship. I don't know.
Well, maybe we can put together an effort, because, I mean, that is a very historic feature. Still functioning at the moment, but, I mean, if something isn't done, that's the kind of stuff that tends to fade away if people don't care about it. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, great.
All right. Well, thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it here. More comments coming in there. We got to more calls coming on the line here shortly, but tell you what, some of the comments coming in here as well. Keith Wilden saying a deck of abandoned buildings because no one can afford the rent. So that was not buildings actually being planned for that downtown. Definitely pop that map up again here, but rather just kind of flat. It was going to be connecting the downtown community essentially, but parks, that kind of a thing. So whether or not it'll be useful or really feasible, like they're even talking about having to put extra light dirt on it. Like the complications are intense here. And just to make it clear, what we're talking about with that project, this would be separate from the actual I-10 construction happening, what TxDOT involved in. There was more of a foundation that I think has gotten a small grant or endowment to fund the research anyway. But, I mean, the project itself, I can't imagine costing less than tens of millions of dollars. It'd be floored if it could come in cheaper than that. And would frankly have questions about its viability if it was able to be cheaper than that, and what it would really turn into. But that's just some of the conversations going on around here. Tell you what, we'll squeeze in one more quick call before we hit that last break here. We do have Ed on the east side here with us right now. Ed, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Andrew, I'd like to see something done with that old Vista Hills golf course there.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Man, there's a lot of beautiful property there, and I don't understand how that can sit so idle.
So, yeah, I mean,
get that advertised statewide or countrywide or something, because that's be a nice place to create for the city, you know.
It would be nice. So just my personal story on that, I was involved in doing some of our coverage of events in town pre-pandemic, and there was at least one local organization that was going to have a golf tournament out there, and we'd done the interview and we're ready to set that to air, and they had to call me back frantically because in between the time we had done the interview and when the event was going to happen, that golf course announced its bankruptcy and shuttering. So they were left scrambling and having to deal with that, and I'm sure a lot of the homeowners, I don't know what is it with longtime golf courses in the last better part of a decade, let's call it that, in our area, that a lot of real estate has been built up around just going completely kaput and neglected here, because the other one that comes to mind is the Santa Teresa one. Did reporting on that back in the day as well, and a lot of still ticked off people about that, because you build something around a major feature like that, you expect it to continue on, particularly if you're personally supporting it, and then just to go under like that. The land use questions that come with that are also pretty significant. I would imagine that will make some kind of sense to get it going, but it might take more public-private partnerships, that kind of a thing of incentive to get it going. But yeah, that one going down right in the center of town too just kind of baffles me, but I guess I've never really gotten the golf business myself, so someone savvier on that point than me might have to Keith Weldon suggesting a campground for the urban campers. I think you're talking about the deck there, but I guess that could also work for the golf courses. I don't know. Someone's got to come along with an innovative business model, because there are other very successful golf courses in town, amongst other things. So I got to imagine, and Steve Ivey very happy with the extra light dirt idea as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of concepts out there, but I agree with you. I'd love to see something done with it. I'm not sure what it would take to do it, though, I'll be honest.
A lot of bucks, I guess. Okay, Andrew. Just my comment. We'll see you later, buddy.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the point in the call. You have a good one there. All right, we got to take that last break of the hour right now. But coming back, we'll squeeze another call or two. But otherwise, we'll talk about what we got coming up for you, and we'll just tee it all up there for Free for All Friday. So back after this break, more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm, of course, your host, Andrew J. Polk. Tell you what, we'll take one more call after this break, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Paisano, an accident is slowing traffic. Police on the scene for that. I-10 westbound at Loma Land, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Lee Trevino northbound at Vista del Sol, an injury accident with the medical crew on the scene. Take Loma Land or Treywood to get around that. Zaragoza Road north and North Loop at Cashew Drive, an injury accident there in the clearing stage. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Your happiest spring starts at Lowe's. Save $30 on the Craftsman 20-volt trimmer blower combo kit. Was $129, now $99. Lowe's, home to any possibility. While supplies last, valid 3/17 through 3/23.
New to Curiosity Stream. Animals with bulletproof skin, impenetrable scales, and poison-tipped spines? They may look strange, but they've got a serious defensive edge. It's nature's oddballs. Plus, archaeologists in Egypt have hit the Mother Lode, an ancient burial complex with dozens of sarcophagi. Who were they? Explore this newfound necropolis on Tombs of Egypt. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/radio.
Who have we all had a little trouble social distancing from? Here's a clue. About 6 feet tall, has handles, and is cold inside. That's right, our refrigerators. And our waistlines have suffered. However, Skechers would like to help you get back on track with our incredible Go Walk footwear, because once you put on Skechers Go Walks, they're so comfortable you'll be inspired to get out there and start walking. Skechers is the comfort technology company, and Go Walks are fully loaded with all the comfort and performance innovations you need. They're incredibly lightweight and breathable, with features like air-cooled Gogomat insoles and bouncy foam bottoms for extra cushioning. And Go Walk footwear come in all the fits you love, like stretch fit, wide fit, relaxed fit, and arch fit, with podiatrist certified arch support. Plus, you'll look great with so many stylish options to choose from, including easy slip-ons and comfy lace-ups. And they're even machine washable. It's time you distance yourself from that fridge. Get out there and start go walking. Find the #1 walking footwear in the world, Skechers Go Walk, for men and women at Skechers.com, a Skechers store, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour. And always online at KTSMradio.com. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk, rounding the bend for the last bit of our show here today. But, of course, we got another show coming here tomorrow. Free for All Friday is going to be on deck with us taking those comments and calls throughout both hours of the show. A lot going on this week, so we'll break it all down, take on all those subjects. Just keep it clean if you're calling in here. And, of course, if you want to leave us a message ahead of that, you can use the pound 250 system. Once you do so, calling pound 250 on your cell phone. You dial those 4 symbols, pound 250. It'll ring, and then leave us a message by saying the keyword Talk El Paso. When prompted, you hear my voice, you can leave us a short message and your own along these lines, kind of like this.
This is Messiah Frankie. I just want to share with all of you out there, I've been watching dutifully the atrocious antics of this nut job, Pootie Putin. And you know him. He's the buddy of that guy, Donnie Dotard, with the yellow cotton candy for hair. He's his buddy. because he thinks he's so savvy and he's such a genius. But I just want to take this opportunity right now to remind everybody there's no such thing as a liberal tyrant, a liberal autocrat, a liberal dictator, or any other kind of nut job that goes out there and espouses whatever. They're all conservatives. Not single one is a liberal. And go ahead and prove me wrong. Show me one dictator, one nut job out there that's got a liberal ideology. Go ahead. I'll wait.
Again, the definitional question that is brought up there about what do you mean by liberal? If you're just going on a conservative liberal ideology basis as one's left wing, one's right wing. If you want to go with left wing, there are absolutely signs of dictators there. Stalin comes to mind if we're talking about specifically Russia here. But tell you what, let's get into that tomorrow here because we're about out of time here for this show. But you're seriously saying that there's never been anyone on the left-wing ideology globally that has been of a dictatorial persuasion? That just doesn't work out here. So just as a microcosm example of what we can do when we comes on Friday, because we will take on any subject. You just, if you're calling in, you better keep it clean because we will take on a lot of subjects here. So that's about what we got time here for today. A couple of things I want to tell you about what we're working on for you for future shows. Are working on, of course, beyond Friday. Some more talk about border security, some of the candidates that have proposals that are coming up along some other border states, talking about what is going on with border security, virtual propositions, and, of course, staffing concerns that come along with it. Plus, again, companies, including those that are named that I didn't realize I didn't coin with nearshoring, the efforts they're doing in our area. Plus, talking more about some of these issues that are affecting us here, such as the job resignation rates. All of that kind of stuff is what we got on deck for you coming up here. RJ pointing out that Michael Savage wrote a book called Liberalism is a Mental Disorder. I don't quite subscribe to that kind of an idea that everyone who disagrees me is touched in the head here, because among other things, I do recall that even not exactly admitting he's wrong, but former President Trump has pointed out that he doesn't understand why Putin did the invasion he did as opposed to just using leverage. But also, there's a stark difference in the application of soft versus hard power that we are seeing the stark example going on within the entire Ukrainian conflict right now, and how once you start using hard power, soft power goes right the hell out the window. And once the shootings, well, another way to put it, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face here. But that's the kind of stuff that we'll get further into here because there's so much to talk about. So we'll devote the whole 2 hours to it on our next show, again, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, because there's a whole lot of stories that we don't even really get to touch on every time we get on the air here. I mean, there's more what's going on with some border security issues, more going on with Texas's school board elections that are coming up, because there's more in other places here. And well, it seems like someone may have been listening to not exactly my words, but some of the calls in general for this is the headline from the Texas Tribune. Texas's traditionally sleepy school board races are suddenly attracting attention and money. Well, fancy that, people paying attention and things getting done because of it. But we'll have to break that down in future shows here. Again, Free for All Fridays on deck next show for you. But in the meantime, we got to end it here for today. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Greatly appreciate everyone who does tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. Even if you're just listening, tell a friend, and we'll count that as good, because y'all are what help make this show what it is. So in the meantime, stay safe out there. I mean it. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. See y'all tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Paisano, an accident is slowing traffic. Police on the scene for that. I-10 westbound at Loma Land, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Lee Trevino northbound at Vista del Sol, an injury accident with medical crew on the scene. Take Loma Land or Treywood to get around that. Zaragoza Road north and North Loop at Cashew Drive, an injury accident there in the clearing stage. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, then El Paso Health Plus Medicare Advantage Plan offers great supplemental